Hey guys, David Robinson here. Welcome to the Apartment Investing Journey. Another show, another great guest with a lot of experience and not just in the multifamily space. I'm excited to have someone come on that can give us sort of a broad range perspective of different asset classes and even diving into prop tech today. So Yishai Breslauer, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate you taking some time with us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so Yishai, at the age of 36, he made a big career change from a teacher to become the CEO of a real estate development and investment company. He had no related degree in real estate, commercial real estate experience, or even a business training and previous experience in business. And he had led several acquisitions, both on the GP as well as the LP side of things, deals ranging between $3 million to $300 million, from condo development to student housing to office and retail. And so I'm excited to have him share some of his experience and his journey with you. He also recently started a new commercial real estate podcast called CRE Shark Eye Show. And so go and check that out if you haven't already. And Yishai, if you don't mind, our podcast is all about the journey. And so I'd love for you to back up and maybe talk to us about this journey that you've been on, starting from, your years teaching and then this transition you made in the real estate space.
For sure. I hope I remember, as we get older. I'm just kidding. So I have a really unique story, which I haven't planned. And if you heard, Steve Jobs' speech, you just do what you do, and then you have to connect that. You just have to have the belief and connect the dots, all the way in the end. And we're not in the end. Starting from the end, a lot of people are talking about and saying to me, whether in my show or, just conversations with all kind of people, entrepreneurs of all levels. And they always tell me, do you know what, when do you get there? So I say, never. You never get there. A, because you have to stay hungry. That's one. Second, because, life, especially in real estate and business, you have so many things going on, that so many ups and downs. I spoke to people who made the hundreds of millions of dollars and then went down again and then had to go up again. And so it's not like, oh, you make it and then you're like, for sure, forever like that. No, you always have to check out and look at your downside, and there are challenges and you have to come back up and all kind of stuff like that. So just a quick note on that. But answering your question, going back to the history, I was a teacher for 13 years. I was a happy teacher. I loved what I did. I taught mostly middle school kids, Jewish studies, and I was a rabbi, you could call it that way. And I was very involved in that, and I was very proud of that. I loved every moment of that. And life took me in a way that at a certain point, I just wanted to change something. But it started with my financial situation. And I said, you know what? I didn't know anything about investments. All those people who think they want to learn, they want to study. Think about being 35 years old, not knowing anything about business, investments. And that was the first time when I saw a friend in the streets, and in the street, and he sees me and he says to me, I read this book, and he talked about, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he said, I read that book and I saw that thing, and today it looks like prehistory, meaning today after all the things we've done. But at that time, I didn't know anything. He said, read that. I went to a course. It's cool. Real estate, investments, all kind of stuff. And I said, okay, cool. It just went over my head and whatever. And I think it was that week that I went to play basketball, which I still did. Today, I just shoot hoops with my son. I'm almost 50 and no more aggressive stuff in sports and all kind of things like that. But at the time I did. And you're talking about 12 years ago. So yeah,
right.
I went to play basketball. I landed on my foot, on someone's foot, and I tore my ligaments. And I was forced to lie down with my foot up, not doing literally anything. So what can you do for like 2 or 3 weeks lying down, can't move? I started watching videos. YouTube existed at that time, believe it or not, folks.
Yeah.
And and I started watching that, and I bumped into Robert Kiyosaki at the time. It's very funny because I barely watch him today. It doesn't serve my purposes today, but it was excellent for me then to start up. And I took that book and I read it cover to cover, and it just started getting into this whole idea. And I signed up. Make the story shorter, I signed up to this academy that taught investments, and I immediately fell in love with real estate. And I said, you know what, this is the thing I want to investigate. I was still in education, more on the administrative side at the time. And I started going in and out, to those courses. It started with a course I remember with how to invest like a single family home or condos, those simple things.
Mm-hmm.
And I was excited about that. I went with a few friends and they said, it's awesome. I said, it's not awesome because it's not enough. I want to learn more. I went to another course learning about mortgages and then financing and then development. And then it went to income producing and commercial real estate. I started going on to more courses because I fell in love with it so much, but I didn't know what to do with it.
Mm.
So I decided, you know what, I'm a teacher. It took time. Obviously, it took months, to go through all those courses. First of all, I started with my own investments and I built some stuff. I got into the construction side of things and I learned how to do that and was very successful with that. And there were good times, to start up. So I started with I had a place and I found out in the zoning that I could actually build 2 more flights up. And that's what I did. And I went to help others do that. And just for fun, not even for money.
And are you still teaching? Are you still teaching at this time?
No.
Okay.
No, at that point, At that point, I'm still teaching.
Yeah.
I'm just doing it on the side. And it's like an investment thing. And it was great.
Yeah.
There was a point that I decided, listen, I want to make a career out of it. And I guess this is a little different than everybody else, or most of the people, not everybody, but most of the people, because most of the people want to know how to invest and they want to grow their investments, which is awesome. To me, the bug was deeper. It was like, how do I make a career out of that thing? And I think that at that point, that's what I wanted to do. So the end of the story of that part, at least, was to go back to that academy. And I went to a consultant within that academy, a guy who does real estate. And I said, listen, I want to shift careers. I want to do what you guys do. I want to do real estate on a larger scale, meaning on the commercial scale, on a, go into that business. I don't want to be a broker. I don't want to sell condos and stuff like that. I want to do something.
Yeah.
And the guy said, he said, do you have a resume? Yeah. Showed him his resume, my resume at the time. He said, listen, you have a great resume as a teacher and as an educator, but you have 0 experience in real estate except of your own investments. Well, give up on it. You're not going to do it. It's not going to make it. So I said to him, why are you saying it? He said, because no one's going to take a guy like you. I was 36 at the time. And the way he said it just burned me up. And I decided I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And I'm going to do something different. And I called probably every person I know to try to find out who I know of anyone. I had this dream to work for this big development company. And I got in. I was pretty lucky to get in. Because when I got in, I got through a friend who got me in, and I'm coming in. The guy says, sometimes you have the passion and then God or whatever you believe in has to come through for you. And I come into the meeting and the guy says, listen, you have 0 experience in selling condos. You have no knowledge of it. You don't know anything about it. And you're coming to this mega development company, which is worldwide, Why would we take you? And I said, I don't know. I'm willing to start from the bottom. And the guy looks at my resume and he said, you know something? I'm looking for a guy like you for the past 3 years. So I was like, what are you talking about? So the guy says, the vice president of the company says, I'm looking for a guy who knows the communities that you know. And as a teacher, as an educator, I didn't know those communities. He says, you can sell those communities. And fast forward, I became the head of marketing and sales for North America for that sector. And that started the way. It wasn't the way for commercial real estate, but it was a great start.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, you have this opportunity, you take action, you start working for this larger development company. Where did things go from there?
It's a good question because people ask me, okay, is that a good path for me to start at? And the answer is no. And why is that? Because I didn't know at the time. At the time I looked at this big company. I can sell condos. It's great. I tell people, don't do that. because it took me 3 years just to figure out that it was the wrong path. And you go into a management position within a multifamily company that, manages multifamily or acquisitions. It's mostly, it's mostly management or being an expediter for a developer. Those things are a great ticket in to any company, and I didn't do it. So how did I get to know it? What was the shift? The shift was 1 week, basically, that I met a bunch of amazing people who do real estate, meaning I came to sell them a condo. And they were, apparently they were like amazing, like grand, those, business people, real estate people. One of them was a big developer. But I think the last day was, I think it was a Thursday. It was like in 1 week, I met all these guys. And then on a Thursday, I met this guy. Until today, I'm in touch with him. And he comes in, and I'm selling this condo. And in 5 minutes, he tells me, I'm buying it. And to me, it was like, I've never saw someone making that kind of, it was $1 million condo. Like, it's not like a cheap condo. So I said, like, I haven't seen a guy who makes $1 million decision in 5 minutes. To me, it was like mind boggling. And I said, what do you do? He said, I do real estate. So he started explaining to me, it sounded like big. I said, can you tell? He said, I'm busy now. You want to come to my office later, on? I came to his office. He has a multifamily. He has a fund. He's a general partner and a limited, meaning he has a whole fund structure to run and manage a country, like nationwide network of properties, anywhere from 50 units to 250, 300 units. So he's handling, like, at the time, thousands of units with acquisitions from here to there and management and his system. And once he told me that, it was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. So at that point, it was just the journey, I would say, started from that point to educate myself to the point that I have the knowledge of numbers and the knowledge of, this business. It wasn't easy, but that's how I started. That's how I got into it.
That's great. And so, you meet this individual, you're working at the development company, selling the condos. You meet this individual who opened your mind to new possibilities. Where did things go from there?
So this guy, obviously opened my mind for it. I started understanding that I want to get into it. I started trying to make connections between people. And at a certain point, it's very funny because I had a conversation with a guy a few days ago with one of the largest funds in Israel, and that does retail investments in the States. Today, they already do general partnership, style and all that stuff. At the time, they were limited partnership. Today, they are mega institutional investors just pouring money on them. It was unbelievable. So at the time, we sit there and I made a connection. I tried to make this match between people. And I'm sitting in the meeting and they talk this language. They say, well, how much, what's the IRR and what's the cash and cash and where, what's your exit strategy? What's your acquisition strategy? Where you got in? What's the caps here? What are this there? And I'm like, I don't understand a word these guys are saying, So I said to myself, I got to study. So I started pulling out. Today I have courses. I have my own course that I do. Other people have courses. It's easy to study. At the time there was nothing. You have to go to like, in some cases you have to go to NYU Shack, like that kind of a school in order to learn that stuff. There was nothing. So I started pulling out Excels and started seeing where this is coming from, and ask questions. What does that mean? What is this? What is debt service? What is NOI? Where is that coming from? And so on. I started understanding the pro forma, the structure, the P&Ls, every single item that you have to understand when you come and look at numbers. And that's how it started all for me. And at that point I was pulled in, which was very, very flattering, but it was, I guess, one of the mega points in my career. I was pulled in by, one of the largest accounting firms. And I became the head of real estate investment banking for them. So I was, sitting in a room with all those accountants and everybody's asking, okay, you're all accountants. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I was the only one who's not an accountant. But it was a token of, self-confidence, to know that, I got to a point that I can be in that, in that gang and feel that I'm worthy to do business. And from that point, it was just moving up, acquisitions, and finally I became a CEO of a company that I started for an investment company, and we did a bunch of things, and of all levels, of all scales, and that was
So
I guess my awesome experience.
yeah, maybe we can go back, and I know I'm pushing you to go back quite a ways into your journey, but maybe we can go back to your first, foray into being an active investor, a general partner in a commercial real estate transaction. What did that look like for you?
So in that case, I got pulled into it because when the investment company that I worked for saw my experience, and they said, listen, we have a bunch of things. We were looking into opening or starting a real estate operation. We need a CEO. And they had a bunch of people doing that kind of stuff, and they asked me to do that. So I said, let me look at it. Let me see if I can do this. You have to be true to yourself. And I looked at it and I said, you know what? I saw a bunch of things to deal with, some good, some bad. And I said, you know what? This is stuff that I can do. There's stuff that I can do. And the beauty, I believe, in commercial real estate, and when I say commercial, is not necessarily retail or industrial and that stuff. It's also multifamily on a larger scale, because there's something beautiful when it comes to those type, of deals. When you do, like, for example, single family, you have to be hands-on. You have to know everything. And sometimes you have to fix yourself, and you have to put the nails, and you have to know how this comes into that, and so on and so forth. Nail the door into the right place, get the contractor, walk inside and know where he's coming, where he's not. You have to be a lot more hands-on on those things. When it comes to commercial real estate, you don't have to know any of that. You have to know some of that, but not the details. Mm-hmm. You have to understand how to, it's like being the conductor of the orchestra. You have to be the best conductor you can be. And at that point, after being in investment banking, real estate investment banking, and dealing with all these mega developers, I figured out, or with those guys who manage those teams, not all of them know everything. They just know how to run a team, and they understand enough to understand it's a good deal, it's a bad deal. That's how it should be managed. And they know who to hire. At that point.
So is it fair to say that at that time in your life, when you were asked to be the CEO of this company, that was really your role? It wasn't necessarily on the real estate side of things. It was managing people and running the team that managed the transaction. Is that correct?
It was both, because the real estate side of things was to strategize everything. There was a deal that we got into, and it was stuck in the middle, and there were a bunch of houses without putting any, details in the addresses and stuff like that. But there were a bunch of houses there, and there was a strategy to go and lease it and rent it out and so on. There was a dream to do something different. But when you come in and then you put a whole strategy into place. So I give you an example. What's a strategy when it comes to real estate? So it's one strategy to come and say, okay, we one day want to reposition those houses on those lots, and to combine all those lots, and to do something different. That's an idea, but to strategize the idea is to come and say, okay, what are the permits? What is the zoning? Mm-hmm. What is the zoning? Can we change the zoning? Okay, what does it take to change the zoning? Is there an architect who did that before? Can we find him? Is there an attorney who we can find? That's the strategy. Is there a way that we can actually make money out of this in a major scale, and not only in a like puny, like getting like those rents, but maybe we can change it. So you go and you find out that students are the biggest market, and student housing is a whole different thing. So you have to study what student housing is. So on the go, you open yourself to it and you understand what it takes, and the calculations from, a unit comes to a bed per bed. And obviously not everybody calculates it that way, but we managed to come and say, maybe we need less units, more beds, which we did. And boom, all of a sudden the IRR jumped, pow. And all of a sudden becomes profitable, a really profitable type of deal that you were excited about. but you have to know who you work with, what type of people will help you get the right permits, right zoning, right
Right.
planning, and eventually, obviously, the right GC and the right CM and all that stuff.
And so on that particular deal, the student housing deal that you reference, is that a deal that what was your role in that opportunity?
So as the CEO, I was privileged to have sometimes, meaning that's the key, to have the good team. Mm-hmm. You have the team that is with you. I would call it the in-house team. And then you have the outsourced team. The outsourced team are the architects, the engineers,
sure,
the MEPs. You have all these guys who are roaming around that you hire, but you have that one operational guy that works with you, is the COO, right? And then you have your acquisition guy, which is the analyst. So the COO comes from the field and he says, I talked to this guy and he has a problem. It's all people. And he has a problem with engineers and we have to switch engineers. There's another right people for us and so on and so forth. At the same time, I'm getting all these and I'm going to my acquisition guy and I'm telling him, can you put all these numbers, the new numbers in? Tell me how it goes. Let's change the formula. Let's change the format. Let's think about it. So it's a think tank that you, as the conductor, you have to see everything and change the strategy within. But to answer your question, I was lucky to have a great COO who knew all these people eventually, meaning, and let's say I got there twice a month. He was there every day. So it's a system that you have to actually conduct, but it's pure real estate.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I'm just trying, and forgive me, maybe I'm missing it, but so you're in this role of CEO with a development company. What were they focused on? Like what were you charged with doing? Were you focused on student housing? Were you focused on office? What were you looking to acquire and where were you acquiring property?
It's a great question. So at first, when I came in, there was already, the strategy was student housing. But then, at first, the student housing was, it was multifamily / student housing. And that was a lot of, most of the things were development or redevelopment or very, like aggressive rehab, a value add type of deal. But like, for example, the one that I just spoke to you about was already rented out, meaning it was already, leased out to people. So we had to like change the strategy and see how we actually get these guys finish their leases, move them out, knock down the thing, build 2 buildings, have students in them, and then get out. So that was the strategy.
And were you focused on a particular market at this point in time?
You're talking about then or now?
Then. So your role as CEO with that company.
Yeah. So at that point, meaning coming and doing all that stuff, when you are a part of a bigger organization, which was an investment company, so they invest in tech and invest in all types of things. So their role was, we want to step away from being GPs. We want to do more raising capital because they had the capital. So I moved away I shifted away from being the general partner to become more LP on the LP side. And that means, and that's a whole different thing, meaning because from looking for deals and brokers and dealing in the field on things. So at the same time that I was doing this, because this was still going, we started being in LPs. And that means looking for the best sponsor and for deals that we may not be able to take upon ourselves. Okay. Like, one of the deals was, even more than $300 million deal. We couldn't take upon, ourselves doing that kind of deal, but being a partner in that deal, that was, and the experience that I had in, for example, doing the due diligence on that type of deal was amazing. Was, opened my eyes in a way that was incredible. But that was at that point, to answer your question, again, that was a shift from the GP side to the LP side. And that was great.
Yeah, that's great. So what does your business...
Just to tell you one comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
What type of deals, when we moved to the LP side, it was less on the types of deals, even though most of them were condo development. That it just happened that way. We had certain strategy, but the focus was some funds, some private equity funds, they have the strategy of going after a certain type of deals, retail, office, multifamily. We had a strategy that we are open to more types of deals, more asset classes, but our focus was who is the sponsor, meaning who is the driver, who is the bus driver.
Right.
You want to put your kid on the bus, on the yellow bus, who goes to school every morning. You want to make sure that the guy who drives the bus is the best guy, and that was our focus.
So that is a great point that we could probably dive a little bit deeper into. With your experience in, vetting sponsors, there's a lot of our listeners who are just passive investors that I think you could share some insight into how you vet a sponsor, how you find that bus driver. What was the process like for you guys to vet out a sponsor, and how did you decide who you wanted to work with?
That's first of all, I love that you saying that, because I think this is the most important thing. A lot of people don't know how to vet sponsors, and it's not that hard. It's not that easy, but it's not that hard. It's not like something they have to be. Vetting a deal is a lot harder. You have to know a lot of aspects and a lot of things in order to vet a deal, and things that you may not know. You will have to learn who to hire when it comes to a sponsor. When it comes to the guy who does the deal, the GP, the general partner, the honcho, the driver, call it whatever you want. First of all, how do you get to those guys? Let's start with that. How do you get to those guys? You get to those guys by having relationships in the market and knowing a lot of equity brokers. There's a whole different world. There's the world of deal brokers, those who bring you the best deal. If you want to run the deal, do the deal, be the sponsor, and those who bring you sponsors who look for equity. Okay. And you have to know what is your criteria as a passive investor, meaning, am I, as a passive investor, am I interested in a very aggressive type of return? If I'm talking IRR, meaning I don't know if your listeners, they know what it is, but I'm assuming many of them do. So if your IRR, goal is 25%, 25 IRR, you're a very aggressive guy, very aggressive. Even 15 is considered to be pretty aggressive for a passive investor, a lot. So you have to understand what type of deal you're looking for. You're going to look for a sponsor that does deals with shorter hold time, with more value add or development, and with different strategies that will fit your needs as an investor. Starting with that. If you are more a passive guy that want to know, say, I want security. I want a little bit more than what the bank gives me, even a lot more what the bank gives me. But I'm good with an IRR that would be, let's say, 12%. I want to cash on cash on, annual basis. I want to know that I'm getting my 7-8%. Then first of all, you know what you're doing. The second thing is, so you can go to an equity broker and tell them, listen, I'm as a guy who syndicates, okay, who have friends who have money. I want to get to those guys. Okay. I want to get to those guys. If you could help me get to those guys. Taking a step back, and I'm sure your listeners are very tuned to that. If you have only, let's say, $100,000 or $50,000, then it's less likely that those type of guys will listen to you, or any sponsor will listen to you, unless he has his own fund. And you will have to go find those sponsors direct. That's much harder. That's a lot of LinkedIn work and a lot of networking to find those guys, because who is going to pick you in the end? They're going to be those private equity funds, and they're going to make a cut on you. And then you have the sponsors on top of that. Sometimes it's not so bad because they will do the due diligence for you. But if you're a guy with $250,000 or $300,000, which is already significant, you can already get to those equity brokers and tell them, listen, I have $300,000, $400,000. I want to get into a deal. They will introduce you directly to that sponsor. You have to, listen, background checks, just do it. Background checks. It's not that hard to do a background check. Make a background check. Ask for previous deals. Ask for track record. Ask for what was the last deal. Ask around. The world is small. Ask around. Sometimes Google will answer you. Just put his name on Google, and all of a sudden you see all kinds of stuff that, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
And the asking around is just sometimes you go to the area and you go to the broker and you go to another broker, another guy, and they will tell you a whole bunch of things about a certain guy. I'm not saying everything is true, but if four or five people tell you the same thing, you have to start being careful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I appreciate that insight. With the time that we have remaining, and we got to start winding down here a little bit, but
sure.
I am curious about what you're focused on today. What does your business look like today, and what are you focused on?
So I took a little bit of a pause from the real estate side of things, and I will get back to it. And I'm assuming more into the core plus multifamily. That's what I would say that would be the next game. Why? Because I learned the good way, the hard way, call it whatever you want. But I learned that sometimes finding what people want, which is a roof over the head, and finding the multifamily that has 70, 60, 70, 80% occupancy, even more, with a small value add game is safer and better. And you may make a lot of money if you know financing well, if you know how to do the refi in the middle and have a great strategy and hire the right people for management. If you need the management part, you can do amazing with that. So that's on the real estate side. What I'm very active today, as we speak today, right now, I'm very, very busy with the prop tech sector, property technology, which is basically all those startups, all those technologies that help the real estate sector, everything from construction to management.
And so what is your role in the prop tech world? What does that look like for you?
So when I was before COVID, I was very, very involved in vetting companies, mostly from Israel, startups. Israel is a startup nation. A lot of people know about it, but getting very, very interesting startups. And we had within the company the privilege of investing in about 8 companies. So some of the companies, meaning, were very, very interesting. And
when you say we, who is that?
It's within that investment company that I spoke about that did the real estate. We had a plan because we saw that they're doing a lot of tech. So I said, something, there's a sector that's called prop tech, property technology. Let's look into that. And at the time, it was not that crazy as today. And me and another tech guy, we sort of made a merger, like of a mini fund, which we started deploying into the prop tech world. And we got a few companies from property management softwares to augmented reality for real estate to all kind of different things. And it was really exciting. Construction technology. And
what's the latest product that you're working on in that space?
So today for property, I'm helping now a company that I'm very close to. I'm very close to the CEO also. It's a company that is called My Tower. It's property management software. It's more called a property management operating system that basically integrates every technology that you have that is related to the management into their system. So it helps property managers to actually run the whole thing through one dashboard, and for tenants to just have fun with an app, and they can order every single thing in the world from that app, whether it's something wrong with the building that they have to just notify someone, or they want to order from the supermarket.
And so if I understand you correctly, the investment company that you have worked with all along has shifted their focus from investing in commercial real estate and now more focused on prop tech. Is that correct?
Yes, they're much more focused on prop tech.
Gotcha. Okay.
A lot more.
Cool.
Me on a personal level, I'm looking still at real estate. There was a deal prior to COVID that on my own I started going into together with a friend, but once COVID started, it didn't happen. So,
gotcha.
Just like everybody else, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, look, Yishai, it's been, I've enjoyed our conversation, and if we had more time, I'd like to go into a little bit more detail on a few different aspects of your journey. That being said, we got to start winding down here a little bit. I've got 3 final questions for you. The first is, what's the biggest win you've had on this real estate investing journey that you've been on?
So, some people take their own capital and they invest and so on. Some people make it through being building a career through it. That's my way. I think that the biggest thing that I've done was that mega million company, the deal that I just shared, to have a part in that together with that company. I think that was an accomplishment I felt was incredible. And I have the deal is still going and it's going really well, thank God. So I have really high expectations for it.
Yeah. And if we had a little bit more time, I'd love to dive into that. The next question I've got for you is, what's the biggest mistake you've made on your investing journey so far that we could all learn from?
I think that it was the beginning, what I mentioned, meaning my passion was commercial real estate, to become a part of this world of real estate, of multifamily, of development, of whatever it is, whether it's office or anything. And I got in from the angle of becoming a condo salesman. That is not helpful. It was helpful in a way, but it was not. It's a whole different sector, and that was not. It's like a guy who goes and sells a lot of residential, and he wants to go into commercial. That would not help you. So for 3 years, I've done that, and it gave me a lot of knowledge and experience, because I happened to work with a development company. So the going around the development sites and seeing what's going on and seeing the plans and being involved in that was a great experience. But,
so it sounds like if you, oh, sorry, go ahead, Yishai.
No, but when I came out, I saw that the knowledge of numbers, which is crucial, I did not have.
Yeah.
So that's why I think that was the biggest mistake.
So it sounds like if you were to do it over again, and if you were, guiding someone else on their journey and they wanted to get into the commercial space, you would encourage them to go directly into commercial versus spending time on residential sales. Is that correct?
Yes. I would say go hold a hand, become an expediter. If you want to if you love development, be the guy who runs around. If you want to go into, the multifamily the whole thing on the management side, become a management guy. A lot of companies need a guy to run around from place to place, get information, go to the buildings, go to the properties. So many people started that way and started well and learned, and some of them started amazing businesses. I would recommend that.
Yeah, love it. Last question for you. What's the best advice you have for someone who's just getting started in their investing journey?
So that was a career advice, what I just said now. Investing journey, if you are passionate and you want to just start it up, the first thing is to educate yourself. That's the first thing, because meaning there has to be a correlation. There has to be some connection between the education and the action. You can't do anything without taking action. But in order to take the first action, you have to be educated. Yeah, you have to know which books to read. You have to know which courses to take. And today, with a very short, simple course, anywhere, you just start with that, and then you move on. It doesn't cost much. Also, with $100 course, you can do wonders, and go from there. And then, or take a book, or listen to podcasts. Listen to David Robinson, and. And you'll know a lot more from one podcast than you knew beforehand. Yeah. That'll be a great start.
Love it. Well, Yishai, I appreciate you taking your time with us today and sharing some of your insight and your journey along the way. What's the best way for our listeners to connect with you if they want to learn more about you and what you have going on?
So I have the links I'll give you. It's first of all, my show is the CRE Shark Eye Show. It's a commercial real estate podcast. They can reach me in my own website, Yishai Breslauer, just like it sounds, Yishai Breslauer .com, YishaiBreslauer.com. And I have a YouTube channel. Any place that you type my name, it's a funny name, I know, it's Yishai Breslauer, but that's my name. Anyway, you type it, there are not too many of me. You'll find me. LinkedIn, by the way. Find me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I have a lot of followers, and I'm very active on LinkedIn.
Love it.
Shoot me out a message on LinkedIn. I'll be there.
Well, we'll have those links in the show notes below. So if you want to reach out to Yishai, go and click on one of those links and connect with him. Yishai, again, thank you so much for taking your time with us today, sharing your journey with us. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.